Hey, Sox fans, welcome to Good Guys Talk Back, episode 189. I am Nick Morawski, and this is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast. You can find us everywhere you find your podcasts. We are on Twitter at Good Guys TV. We've got a Facebook fan page, and you can now check us out on our YouTube channel. Just search Good Guys Talk Back. A lot to get to this past week. Some very lethargic, lifeless baseball. However, the San Diego series wasn't too bad. Sox have 3 games left in the season. And of course, the biggest story is the Tony La Russa potential announcement of him retiring. So we are going to make some predictions and talk about his second tenure and who could be coming in as the next Sox manager. To break everything down with me, my co-host and dear friend for many, many years, lifelong diehard Sox fan, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Nick, it is fantastic to be with you. I thought we would just spend the next 45 minutes or so just polishing up each other's resumes. There's going to be an opening on the South Side soon. You and I, know just as much as any other, potential candidate that's never managed before, like a Jim Tomei or others that have no experience that we'll dive into later on in these lists and of people that are going to get possibly interviews. And it's Jerry's world. We'll see where Jerry wants to go this time.
Yeah, I really hope there is a true managerial search. I know I'm not the only one thinking that way, but it has been a while since they have done it. We'll get into all that managerial stuff. And it's speculation, but it sure feels like, coming from Bob Nightengale, it's going to be the real deal, and there'll be a Tony La Russa announcement on Monday. As we record here, Sox are 79 and 80. They are in second place. They just wrapped up a series out on the West Coast in San Diego where they took 2 of 3 from the playoff-bound Padres, and the Sox are home now with a 3-game series, last 3 games of the season against the Minnesota Twins. I guess there's something to play for, maybe some pride to finish over 500, maybe finish in second place, give the fans something to get excited about maybe these last 3 games. I don't know. Have you been consuming a lot of White Sox baseball over the last week, Pat?
Very, very little. I'd be a complete liar if I sat here and say I've been, tuned in every second of the day, in every hour and every inning. It just hasn't happened.
Every second of the day.
Every second of the day.
I'm watching replays nonstop. Hey, welcome to my world this season.
That's you. We've got a man there. That's Nick Morawski's job. He's got it.
Oh my God.
He'll just do it for me. That's why that's why God made you.
Mm-hmm. No,
and he made me the way I am. No, mm-hmm. I here's the thing. And I don't know if it's just more about, I'm just really disgusted with the way they've played. I'm disgusted with the fact that they just rolled over and said, it's over. We don't have anything to play for. And they gave up. They gave up on themselves and they gave up on the fans. And regardless of the fact that you're out of it, you still should, have effort and try and play hard. And it's just unfortunate the way that they just showed maybe their true colors. I don't know. And I think it's a lack of respect for the organization and the manager, Miguel Cairo, whether it's Cairo or whether it's you're playing for Tony La Russa and that's how you really feel about him. Regardless, you didn't play for yourself or your teammates. And what a way to, maybe end a career for a Jose Abreu. That's how you feel about that guy, the guy that you want back. This is how you're going to show, how you want to play for him. They've gotten as much of my attention as they deserve. Let's just put it that way.
A guy that it doesn't feel like they've given up is Elvis Andrus. He has been continuing to hit. Had a great series in San Diego. Had a couple home runs. He definitely he wants to come back. He's willing to change positions, and I feel like the Sox now have to really look at him and say, "Wow, you've got some pop in your bat. Can you bring that for a whole season? Can you continue that next year? And what's it going to take?" There's a lot of questions in the offseason that need to be answered, infield, outfield, and beyond. If I wasn't committed to the lockdown White Sox and having to give a daily podcast, I wouldn't be following it as closely. I mean, I watched, every single inning of that 8-game losing streak, and consumed as much as possible during this past weekend. Obviously, weekends, difficult. Got the 5-month-old, running around seeing family, this, that, and the other. But I did watch a lot of it, and Friday was exciting against what they did against Yu Darvish, and of course Lance Lynn had a great outing on Sunday, and they did enough to knock off the playoff bound Padres. But I think you're right. It just, to an average fan, and I ran into one in a gathering on Saturday. I was talking to a guy, never met him before, started talking sports. He claimed to be a Sox fan, and he just said after that game 1 against Cleveland, and they lost, and he was like, that's it. I stopped watching. I'll check in on the score and any happenings or some of the box score stuff, but I'm not watching the games anymore. And I'm not wired like that. I've tried to do that. So I've been with it consistently, and it's been bad. There's been some bad baseball, lifeless baseball. But here we have Sox 1 game under 500. Can they? I mean, it'd be just pathetic if they finished under 500. But really, does it even matter where they're at record wise? If they're in 3rd place, 2nd place? Change needs to happen, and it sure sounds like it is going to happen. Bob Nightengale from USA Today came out with an article with a statement over the weekend that on Monday, again, we're just anticipating this happening. We're assuming this is going to happen because it's coming from the whisperer, the White Sox whisperer, Bob Nightengale. Tony La Russa himself is going to announce his retirement. So was that shocking, Pat, to hear that?
I don't know that it was necessarily shocking. I guess it's maybe a little odd on the timing. Why not just wait another, 3 or 4 days and let the season come to a close before you announce your retirement? But I don't know why you do it on a Monday. Not really sure what the reasoning is on that. I was more interested. First of all, coming from Bob Nightingale, it's true. Okay. No matter what our friend NWI Steve says about Bob Nightingale, if it's about a Sox thing,
I love Steve.
I love you too, Steve. God bless you. Don't come knocking on my head or say anything like. But if it's about the White Sox and Bob Nightingale, it's probably hashtag confirmed. It's happening. I just was curious. I'm more curious about what Tony's going to say. If you were the speechwriter for his statement, how do you think his comments will be? Addressing his retirement?
Well, I think it's going to be thanking the organization, a lot of thanking Reinsdorf, and it's going to be, I wish I could finish what I started, but my health, my family, my health, the toll that this season has taken on me and not performing the way, we were supposed to perform. I think it's going to come back to health. And, that way it's going to be very difficult to bury him, like to really, really dump on him, because health is important, and if he's got something serious going on with, whatever the pacemaker, his heart, what have you, like, I wish him nothing but the best health, gosh, hopefully he, can enjoy his family for many, many, many years. And if he still wants to be in baseball in some capacity, the rumors are he's not going to go up into the front office and hold some kind of, just position. But I think your speech, your announcement is just going to be, I want it to. The fire is still there, but, doctors and consulting with family, like, it's just not the smart route.
Do you think he'll have anything to say? Like, there were moments where I'd like to have back. And there were times when I felt like, maybe the game has passed me by. Do you think there's any discussion or anything like that, taking a little bit of, ownership on things that he screwed up? Or is it just, I wish it would have played out. I really, it's not the way I envisioned it going. I wanted to go out on top and right off in the sunset and the organization I started in, yada, yada, yada. Do you think there's any part of that statement or any of that conversation where it's like, There were times where I felt like I just couldn't keep up. I just couldn't. I felt like I lost my fastball, for lack of a better term.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to get that from him. I think it's going to be focused on health. I think that he will be apologetic to Reinsdorf and maybe even to the fans of, I wanted this to go differently. I wanted to bring back a world championship, but I don't think he's going to go that route at
Who will
all.
be up there with him? Will it be just him and Rick? Will it be the whole entire brain trust with Kenny and Jerry? Who do you think is usually these types of things? It's not just, it's not just the manager or whoever's really making the address. Usually there's other folks up there.
I don't know. I don't think anybody's going to be in camera, like sitting at the
No.
table with a microphone that like they're also going to field questions. I don't know. That'll probably happen at a different time. This is of course, the Sox are coming back from from a road trip, and usually when that happens, the first game, Han is available to the media, and I'm just assuming maybe they try to get it done all in one, like Han's also going to talk, but
Mm.
I don't at all think Jerry Reinsdorf's going to be there. He should be there. Jerry Reinsdorf should be giving a statement. He should be, on microphone, explaining and taking questions of what was his rationale. What was he thinking? Why did he think that Tony La Russa, in his situation in the fall of 2020, was the right fit for where this team was headed? Like he should be the one that has to answer all the difficult questions. It'll never happen. That's just a dream. But I think, Han will try to spin it and, like he did when he was initially hired, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we're led to believe all the reports, that have come out since, that Han wanted AJ Hinch as the next manager. And we know that La Russa was forced down our throats. This was a decision made by Reinsdorf, and Reinsdorf should have to answer. Like when's the last time Reinsdorf made public statements, addressing fans? It just really irks me.
Yeah, he very rarely does anything other if it's not like an organized interview where it's a very controlled situation, right? A one-on-one interview that can be edited, and I'm sure that there's a list of questions. To, stay away from this type of thing. Don't ask me this, and probably on his terms in terms of his channels that he controls, right? NBC Sports, channel, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you're right. You're not going to see him talk or hear from him at all. And it'll be interesting to see how much he really has involved in the next hire. If this is truly going to be a managerial search, I'm hoping it's like the movie The Fugitive, right? They're checking out every hen house, outhouse, dog house, and penthouse in the Tri-County area.
Well, there's a Chicago connection there. Yeah, I thought maybe you're going to go the route of like Han is the fugitive. He's trying to leave. He's trying to get out of Chicago. He doesn't want to be the GM anymore. And Reinsdorf is Tommy Lee Jones, just hunting him down.
Oh
Like,
man,
no, you're coming back here. You're not leaving. You're not leaving this fun-filled family Christmas.
oh boy, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is that you hit an interesting point there. Do you think, okay, who's making this next decision? Is Jerry Reinsdorf making this next managerial decision? Is he giving Han the ability to do it? And with like the lack of moves that Han has made over the last couple of years, the real clunkers, do you even trust Han to make the right decision?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, because there have been times, Nick, and don't forget that Rick Hahn has won the offseason.
Oh,
There's been a
sure.
couple,
Yeah.
there's been times where, and not just, praised by local media, he's been praised by people outside of the organization in baseball. Look at what Rick Hahn has done. Look at this. Look what Rick Hahn, and this is even pre like, rebuild and tear down type stuff. And it's easy to trade off guys like a Chris Sale, your best players, and get a boatload back and try and turn those into things. And those are the easy things to do. it's surprising what he's done recently. Like you said, this past offseason and the trade deadline included, you look at that body of work. I mean, there's a lot of GMs that are going to get fired for that as part of their resume. You can look at some things that he's done well, and he's done some things well. That's, right. He hasn't been a complete, bust in terms of a general manager, but the in the last calendar year, what he has done with this organization is like a fireable offense.
Oh yeah.
You've documented many times. Anytime Diekman comes in, it's like, this was the guy that we got at the trade deadline. And you look back at the lack of, sense of urgency in terms of before the lockout, when not every other team, a lot of organizations are going out there and getting things done early. This team sat back on their hands. And, one of the teams is the Texas Rangers. Now, where are the Texas Rangers going? Nowhere. But the Rangers weren't a ready to win and a, top 4 in terms of winning the World Series odds type of team. This is a team that was, supposedly built to win, and you push your chips in on a move here or move there and just put yourself over the top. And they decided not to do that, which is disturbing.
So that's where I think Reinsdorf said, just a conspiracy theory here, and it's not a terrible stretch, but Reinsdorf said to Hahn, let me do this. Let me make this move and put La Russa in play. You're going to be safe because this is on me if this doesn't work out. I'm going to go over your head. I'm going to do this. I have this much faith in this. I want this to happen. I need this to happen just for some peace in my life. And if it doesn't go right, I'm going to let you then take over and finish this the way you want. That could maybe have been how the conversation went a couple of years ago. I don't know.
Yeah, but why though does that, handcuff Rick Hahn to make a move though? The making the manager or not making the manager decision, does he then just say, well, that was enough? Does Jerry tell him the manager should have been enough to get this team over the top? You don't have to make a bunch of more moves. Do you think that's the conversation?
They're part of it. I think there's a financial constraint in a way. And there's a lot of things that I think he can't do financially, Hahn. And this goes back like a while. Like I'm talking Manny Machado, like speaking of the San Diego series, I'm talking about that. But there are things where it's like, here's your money, do what you will with it. And it's gone horribly wrong. Yeah. The Joe Kelly thing, how the Lurie Garcia money was used, like that some of that was just, and that's just recent, recent stuff. No good, especially with where this team was and what it needed to address.
Yeah.
To put a competitive team, more than a championship team together. So, I mean, now I'm starting to think like highlights of the La Russa tenure, I guess the 2.0. And there aren't many. It's the division championship of 2021, winning 93 games. And you and I gave La Russa a lot of credit last season when there were injuries left and right. There were problems with, the pitching staff. And he was like, something was going on where like he was able to manage this team to stay afloat until Robert came back and Eloy came back and everybody was clicking on all cylinders. We definitely had to say, hey, look, if you're gonna beat down the manager, you got to praise the manager when things are going right. And somehow things seem to be positive. This year, it just seemed like the moves that he was making, the in-game decisions that were happening, and the love for example, the legend, Lurie Garcia, it all just compounded into then you got to factor in obviously injuries and players not playing well and, poor defense, base running, a bunch of stuff. But the moves that La Russa was making this season did not help what was already going on.
Yeah. And not to mention that I don't think this team nor the manager maybe was expecting the fight they got from Cleveland this year. I think they got punched in the mouth and didn't know how to respond. I think they thought it doesn't really matter if I, walk a guy on 2 strikes. a couple times this season, or, bat Leary Garcia and lead off. It doesn't really matter, because eventually the cream will rise to the top, is what they thought. And we're going to win this division probably pretty handily again. And you got punched in the mouth repeatedly, and you couldn't get yourself off the mat, or you didn't want to. You just got beat down enough, and it's like, the heck with this.
You got beat, and you got beat early, and you didn't know how to pivot. You didn't know how to respond and change your approach. You kind of stuck with the same approach.
Yeah.
And that is what, we're going to start talking about future managers. That's something that it got to be a very difficult quality to define. But, maybe it can be vetted in an interview process of, how you can change and what your philosophy is in season. When you've got this approach, and you're realizing that teams are attacking you in a different way. Like, how do you change? How do you make that change? And how do you get people to follow you? Like a general almost in a war. Like, this is how we were going to approach the enemy. That is going out the window. So we are not going to just continue to march this way. We are going to have to re-strategize. And how do I get folks to buy into my new plan? Because this was the plan I've been preaching since February. It's now July. How can we change course? So there's a lot of negatives, and depending on who you talk to, Pat, though, also there's a lot of bummed out people that Tony La Russa is no longer going to be the manager of the White Sox.
Who?
There are. Do you not know people that are big Tony La Russa fans?
I don't know any, but I don't know many people. I mean, you're about it. You're my circle.
There are people that will defend La Russa. I think there are folks that feel like it was more of the players quit on him. Again, it's like politics. You got your candidates, and you can kind of draw a line, and it's like you got your folks that will follow La Russa forever. They'll die on that hill, and they're going to be upset. They are going to be bummed that he's no longer the manager. But Sox will be looking for their fourth manager in 8 seasons. When this announcement, which we're assuming goes through on Monday. Bob Nightengale's article highlighted a few of the names, and there are so many others that Paul Sullivan wrote about from the Chicago Tribune. If you haven't heard the names, which I'm sure you have, folks, here they are from Bob Nightengale. You've got Bruce Bochy, Mike Schilt, Joe Espada, George Lombard, Carlos Beltran. Those were his names in the article, Pat. Thoughts on any, on none, on, do any of those really, move the needle for you?
Well, the founder of Lombard is, really intriguing there. George Lombard, never heard of him. You don't need to tell me. I don't need to have a guy that necessarily.
Do you need a name?
I don't know that I necessarily need a name. That's where I was going.
Okay.
I don't know that I necessarily need a name. I need to know that this isn't just. I just can't have another Robert Ventura. Okay. So as long as it's not that, or a Terry Bevington, can I just have a guy that goes out there and I'll use a term that's been used on the radio a lot, and they've been talking a lot about this past couple of weeks about Justin Fields. And Justin Fields, you got to hit your layups, to use a basketball term. So now I'm using a basketball term to talk about a football term to relate to a managerial search. But what I mean by that is, if you're going and you're driving to the lane, you got to make your layup, right? It's a high percentage shot. You can't miss that one. They're talking about that with Justin Fields. You got an easy throw there that the guy's open. You got to make those throws. You can't be indecisive and, or be inaccurate. This is what I mean in the same vein in terms of my manager. Hit your layups. Don't overthink things that don't need to be overthought, and get your team in a right frame of mind and have them playing with intensity the right amount of intensity, the majority, if not the entire season. I know you're not going to get it out of them for 162 games. You're going to have days where, guys kind of mentally take a day off. It's going to happen in a long season, but you've got to find a way to get them back on track again and get them going in the right direction and not coach them to be lax and relax and just say everything's going to be fine tomorrow and we'll get them again tomorrow. I need some sense of urgency and purpose from the word go. And I need to know that I've got a guy that is going to make the right call and don't overthink things. Right.
Yeah.
When there's 30,000 people in the stands that can make the right call and you go the other way and it blows up in your face because you try and be smarter than everybody else in the room, that I don't need that anymore. And I don't need sleepy Robin Ventura, having to be woken up in the dugout to make a move. I just need to know that this is a good baseball mind, and it can be a completely analytical person. It can be more of a person that manages with their gut. I don't really care. I just need someone that knows the game and that can motivate people.
Yeah, Miguel Cairo talked just recently about whoever that next person will be, that there should be a focus of accountability, that they need to, make sure the team is prepared. Stuff that I kind of think is like 101, like baseball 101. Like this should have been happening at the beginning of the season. And it is sad to me if that is true, where these players, this Sox team, thought it was going to be a cakewalk, like they were just going to take over this division. Nightengale's article, gives you a bit of a feeling that this decision has to be made, and it has to be made quickly, and it has to be the right decision, because teams like the Guardians are going to continue to come after you. Detroit's going to get better. Like no one is slowing down in the AL Central saying we're not going to make any moves because it's the White Sox time. It's their window. We're going to give them the floor for a little bit so they could figure their act to get out, and then we'll start making moves. No, that's not happening. Like we have to really act swiftly. I wonder, if some of these teams that are going to be going to the postseason, if there's going to be a problem trying to interview some of these folks that are with the Astros, are with maybe Cleveland. I have talked about, Sandy Alomar Jr. I know there's not a lot of folks that are as hot on him, but a guy that has been around baseball for a long time, former catcher, had some stints with the White Sox at one point. And here's my thing, has been with a well-run ball club, like knows what a good organization is like.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't necessarily have a big name out there. I kind of know what I don't want. But I know that I need someone with experience, that really has a plan and has got a method, but also is from an organization that like saw how it's done. Like this is how a well-run organization is done, top to bottom, and can bring that in and breathe life, hopefully, into the White Sox. If people will listen, if the front office will listen, if Jerry, Kenny, Hahn, and others will listen. If they're not going to listen, then what's the point? Other names, Pat, that have been floated around: AJ Pierzynski. Willie Harris has been advocating for himself, who's the current third base coach for the Chicago Cubs. He apparently had an interview in 2020 before they hired eventually Tony La Russa. I think he might have been one of the only folks interviewed. Willie Harris, of course, from the 2005 White Sox team. Ozzie Guillen, Pat, he's not going away. And Paul Sullivan talked about Ozzie Guillen in his article in the Tribune, among a bunch of other names. And today, on Sunday's pregame on NBC Sports Chicago, man, Guillen was out there. I mean, here's his quote. He said he's the best man for the job. And, quote, "Let me be cocky. Nobody in baseball knows this ball club better than Ozzie Guillen," end quote. Now, Pat, I'm into, history, presidential history. It's something that I have enjoyed. Years and years ago, before there were primaries leading up to a presidential election, basically the nominee happened at the convention. You had the Democratic convention, the Republican convention, and you would stump for yourself. You would try to get delegates in order, like you put your numbers in my. And like there would be a lot of candidates that would be like, oh, I don't know if I'm actually going to be running either, even though secretively they were trying to get all their ducks in a row and get their numbers. So when the voting actually happened in the convention, it looked like they put up a good front. That's what I kind of see Ozzie Guillen to a certain degree. It's like, no. That is past, but we saw what he said on Sunday. He wants this job.
Oh God, yeah.
He wants this job in the worst way. And that right there, nobody knows this ball club better than Ozzie Guillen. He wants this gig.
Wow. That would be, I don't know that I necessarily want to run it back with Ozzie. But I don't also think that I would be upset. I don't really know how I would feel about.
I see where you're going.
Back.
I can see where you're coming from with that. I talked about on Locked On White Sox last week. Like, I think you have to remove yourself from Ozzie. I do want a different voice. I think he's just been too close, to it. And maybe that has been the organization's fault. Maybe they shouldn't have brought him back as a color guy, although he does an awesome job in the pre and post game.
Yeah.
But he's been so close to the organization that he is part of it still.
Yeah.
He's part of he's been almost like an honorary manager for 5-6 years. So I can see like you saying it'd almost be interesting just to watch what would happen. But I would want that maybe for a different team. Like, it'd be interesting if the Cardinals tried to bring back Tony La Russa. Like, that'd be kind of fun that'd be kind of fun to watch from the sideline. But not with my team. Like, I think we need a different voice. I think we need a different direction.
I'm with you. And I really am not interested in a retread ex-player. And then I love AJ Pierzynski. I love what he did in the uniform for the White Sox and how he did it for so long. And what he meant to that organization when we had, the glory days, if you will. And Willie Harris, God bless you for scoring the only run in Game 4 of the World Series. Fantastic. And I'm sure you're well qualified. I am looking for someone with a different, to come into this organization from a different viewpoint. You brought it up before, and someone from the outside that can go, I've been in other organizations. I understand how it works. And that's what I don't really like about what Ozzie said. No one knows this organization better than I do. I'd rather have someone come in that doesn't know this organization, that can give some, fundamental and solid feedback and say, listen, I've been part of organizations that have won and I've seen success, or I've mentored or I was a mentee under this manager, and this is the way they took care of their business in recent years, and been a part of winning organization in recent years. That's why I would go back up to the top of that list, and Bruce Bochy, 67, 3-time World Series champion. I'm not really sure that the age thing really gets to me, but he's been away from the game for a little bit.
Only a couple years. I think 2019 was his last year.
Probably the most decorated person on this list. You could sell me on that. I could see okay, tell me what you did with San Francisco that's had a lot of success over the past, decade, right? Bring that here. Can you bring that here? But that'll probably be the most expensive candidate, right? And that's not the way we usually go with these things.
Do you think being bilingual, being able to relate to players, celebrate the new age baseball, the fun, the bat flipping, that was what we were talking about 2 years ago with, is Tony going to allow people to have fun, like the swagger stuff? How is he going to relate to these guys like Jimenez and Robert and Anderson? And, obviously the bilingual thing is very important. What are your, do you think those are musts?
I think it helps. Right. And this team has had a long history of, a lot of fantastic Cuban players have come through this organization. Venezuelan players have played for this organization. We've got, players right now that are more comfortable speaking Spanish. I think that helps. That's why I think maybe the Carlos Beltran, right? That seems to be an interesting one there because, he's probably can relate more to this day and age in terms of player, and obviously was very heavily touted before he got let go from the Mets because of the scandal with the Astros beforehand. So that one intrigues me a little bit more. Everybody else in the middle, Mike Schilt, not interested in Mike Schilt at all. And the other two guys, I don't even know who they are. So I need something with a little cachet, right?
Okay.
So maybe even before when I said I don't need a name, I don't necessarily need a name, but I feel those I feel more comfortable with, right? Those two guys there, and
Yeah.
the ex players, I just don't
Here
want the ex
are
player.
here's some from Paul Sullivan's article. He mentioned several that Bob Nightengale hit on. Miguel Cairo, so let's not forget about him.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Getz, Joe Girardi, AJ Hinch trying to pry him away from Detroit, Ethan Katz, and Jim Thome. these are Paul Sullivan's suggestions. I don't think he's necessarily hearing these as real candidates.
How do
This
you
was
get
his
AJ Hinch? Like, do you just knock on the tires, or hey, this was the guy we really wanted?
yeah,
It's like almost like your neighbor that got your mail by mistake. Like, hey, I
uh,
noticed that you have some of my mail.
I don't know. Does Detroit like release him from his contract or something? I don't know. I feel like that one was and I don't the Joe Girardi thing, I
Well,
don't
that's
know.
it. It's interesting because I mean, I don't know that this would happen, but now the Tigers have a new general manager, right? They just fired their general manager. This obviously AJ Hinch is not the current general manager's hire because I think they
Hmm.
hired somebody,
Yeah.
if memory serves. So that's interesting. Joe Girardi, again, a name, a guy that's had success, but he seems to rub people the wrong way. I don't. I think that he'd be good in terms of getting the team focused and playing with intensity and would manage the team properly. I don't think there'd be a lot that we go with Joe Girardi and go, I can't believe that Joe just made this move. I just think he's kind of a red ass and would just, he seems to find his way out of organizations, right?
Yeah. I just that does nothing for me. Ethan Katz, no, I like you where you're at. Miguel Cairo, I think he's auditioning for managerial jobs. I really do. I think what's
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons why he's so disappointed with the way the Sox have played the last couple weeks is he saw, man, the way they were playing 13-6, whatever it was. This is my ticket to a big league club, whether it's with the White Sox or somewhere else. Um, Jim Thome, that name, I don't know what Paul Sullivan's thinking, and I don't ever know what he's really thinking with some of his articles. But Jim Thome, no, thank you.
Yeah.
White Sox legend. I'm sorry, Jim Thome. No, you keep being your ambassador or whatever you're doing. I think not. I'm not name driven either. Joe Espada was a New York Yankees third base coach, current Astros bench coach since 2018. So when I talk about an organization that has got winning culture and knows what they're doing, the Astros thing, hits people in a different way. There's some
Mm-hmm.
folks that are like, well, the last couple years it's been done clean and they're continuing to win, but they're winning with some guys that obviously cheated. And do you trust anybody from the Astros organization? Did they pay their time? Is that what baseball is? This has been going on for decades and decades. It's just now the Astros finally got caught doing it the way they
Mm-hmm.
were doing it. I don't know. I mean, if you listen to some people that are in the know, they would say Jerry Reinsdorf was never going to bring AJ Hinch in anyways because of what he did to the game and the scandal and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true. So then do you bring Carlos Beltran in? Is he a real, do you get behind that and do you support that?
Uh, at this point, Nick, I mean that the scandal and the cheating with the Astros, I mean that's almost ancient history. It feels like to me, and I really don't care. Just can you manage the team again, do you check all the boxes I had mentioned before? You
I
can't
want it
cheat.
more. I want it more than can you just manage the team? I hope
Yeah,
that's not the.
the last
Can you
manager
show
couldn't.
up on
The last
time?
manager couldn't. He couldn't stay awake. He didn't know how to put a lineup out there. He didn't know the rules of the game, Nick. So
Yeah,
listen, yeah,
that's
quite
true.
simply. Do you know
Yeah.
do you know the rules? Let's let's start there. So let's role play
Oh,
it. Nick,
yeah,
you're
sure.
interviewing for the show.
Uh-huh.
Nick, it's great to have you. Do you understand the rules of the game of baseball?
Yeah, I read through the manual. I'm well versed. All the new
Okay,
rules.
are you
Yep.
aware of a gentleman named Leary Garcia?
I love Lurie Garcia. Oh
All right.
no. Oh no. Oh
Well,
no. Oh no. What did I do?
yes,
Oh,
my
what did I
secretary will
say?
be seeing you out.
Oh,
So that's how the
yeah.
interview goes
Gotcha.
for me.
Yeah, it's what do you bring anybody back from the coaching staff? Do you say to the new manager, we really like these guys? Like, I wish you would give these guys a chance, or do you let them just clean house?
I would let them clean house. I would like the new manager to bring in the guys that he wants to bring in. And we've talked a lot about, the hitting coach and how bad this
Yeah.
team has been under his,
Manikino. Yeah.
Menachino, with his direction. So obviously he should go regardless. But even Ethan Katz, I mean, it's not like to me, it's not like Ethan Katz has done anything that I'm just blown away by, right?
I
Honestly,
like
other
what
than
Cease
Dylan
has
Cease.
done. I mean,
But what have you done with Giolito? Giolito's supposed to be your Padawan learner, and he's gone the wrong way.
my thing with Giolito, and I know we'll probably get into this, in the off season when we start breaking down, just specific players and what went horribly wrong. That seemed like an individual choice. Like Giolito bulked up. I don't know who gave him the green light to do that. And he bulked up in a way that I don't think was going to be very productive to his mechanics.
Hmm.
And he saw the injury, or he felt the injuries, those piled up, and he couldn't get back on track. And maybe Katz was like, I don't know what you did in the off season. I don't know,
Yeah,
because we couldn't talk to each other because of the lockout or what have you. I don't know how to fix this right now. We'll try, but you and I are going to be working on this in the off season.
yeah,
That's just I get what you're saying. There's a lot of folks that I talk to that are like, you know what, let Katz walk. I mean, he's
mhm,
really done nothing. And I would have Boston and McEwing shipped off somewhere as well. But Boston he's an organizational guy.
yeah,
Jerry keeps him around.
yeah,
Former player. That's where things run deep. It's like, how
yeah.
much change will the new manager actually be able to make?
Yeah, I know. It's there. Boston is kind of like as much of a fixture as the statues are out in center field. It's like
Yeah.
you just that they're part of they're part of guaranteed rate. It's like if you're coming here, those are the guys that are going to be at
So
first
that's
and
where
at third.
I think, like, if it's a Jerry guy, if it's an organizational guy, if it's a Pierzynski, if it is an Ozzie Guillen again, then they're going to probably be told, okay, these are the folks that are untouchable. Okay, these other changes you can make on your staff, but these guys stay. You
Yeah,
know, because then they can control that manager. If
yeah,
they bring in a wild card, and they truly bring an outsider that is going to buck the system, they don't know what to expect. And I
yeah.
think been a problem with Reinsdorf, is he needs to have control over the situation. They have to be people that fall in line. And that I don't know if you're going to get a true outside candidate.
And that's where you'd go as you'd hope someone would be sane and you'd say, Jerry, how's that working out for you?
Yeah.
How's that worked out for you over the past 20
And I
years?
don't think he cares. I don't think he cares at all. You think he really cares about what the fans think, and if they're warm and fuzzy and they have good experiences? And not at all. I don't. I'm sorry. Maybe that's just the cynical way of me these days. But I think he is like, you know what? If we've got things going in the right direction, I will spend this amount of money. Let's try to do the best we can. A winning product is good for my pocketbook,
Yeah.
but in terms of what the fans want, and if they're feeling good, I don't care.
maybe we get an early Christmas gift. And tomorrow, not only is Tony La Russa, retiring, maybe Jerry announces the sale of the team.
Hey, it could come in bunches. I mean, when Ricky left, and that was a shock when Ricky was gone, and they also canned Don Cooper in the same moment. So
Mm-hmm.
you might get something like that. I say it like it actually can happen. I sometimes I try to like talk things into existence. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, he might be selling the team tomorrow.
Maybe it
That is
is.
never
Maybe
going to
they'll go out
happen.
together and they'll just get in a car and drive to Arizona.
And then they'll turn it into some sort of docuseries on like Hulu. That would be something else.
Oh,
No, I'm curious, man. I really am curious about this. How much of a press conference it will be? If it's just going to be a statement, who's going to be involved, and how quickly, and how transparent this process actually is.
yeah. And again, follow Bob Nightengale. He's the one
Yeah.
that's going to be, you're probably your best bet in terms of rumors that are going on. I've learned my lesson. I will listen to Bob. And when it comes to
It's
White Sox,
sad, isn't it, though, Pat? Like some of the local guys, like that, are plugged into the White Sox, that are the voice of the Sox in a
yeah.
lot of ways. Guys like James Fegan that we have talked to several times, they don't get an ounce. It's like the scraps, and
Mm-hmm.
it's this information gets pumped to John Heyman out in New York and Bob Nightengale. Like
Yeah.
it just is bizarre how this
Yeah.
works. It really
Yeah.
is.
I've learned not to listen to Hector Gomez.
Mhm.
That's one you stay away from. If it's Hector Gomez, go the other way. If it's Bob Nightingale, there's the information that's real.
Pat, again, it's going to be an eventful off season. You and I, there is no off season for Good Guys Talk Back. We will be at it fairly regularly, especially when big news breaks. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast, pass it along to other folks in your life, especially Sox fans. Find us on social media, and we've got this YouTube channel here. We're finally up to the times in a way.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're big time now. Yeah, we're
Oh,
going to be
sure.
kind of like a newlywed couple. Just add it regularly. This can be
Mhm.
fantastic.
Oh, yeah. So Pat, we really should get back in person. We should do maybe some live events
Oh
next
yeah.
year, next
Yeah,
season.
let's do that. I can't wait. It's going to be a fun off season. We got a lot to discuss, I'm sure. And this team, if nothing else, always gives us something to talk about, Nick.
Yeah, there's never a dull moment. Always a pleasure, buddy, talking White
Yep,
Sox
yep.
with you, my friend.
Let's do it again next week, and we'll be talking end of the year with 3 to go.
Yep.
Let's try and finish 81 and 81. Why not?
Well, boy, that would be real sweet, real sweet, like we all expected. Folks, thank you so very much for joining us once again. Good Guys Talk Back, fan-centric, local Chicago White Sox podcast. Find us everywhere. We're on Twitter at Good Guys TB. We've got a Facebook fan page, and of course, as you heard, we've got a YouTube channel. Just search Good Guys Talk Back. For Pat Hester, I am Nick Morawski. Until next time, go Sox.